So now they're in Neyafu. The next morning, they wake up. Finau wants to build a fortress in Neyafu now. You have the fortress in Feretoa, where they had the battle, and now you have a fortress here in Neyafu, or at least he sent guys out to bring bamboo so they can start building a fortress in Neyafu. Finau really wants Vava'u. He really wants to own and be the leader and king of Vava'u. All this goes into why people think Finau is a Vava'u guy, is because of probably this and him going to battle and trying to take Vava'u, even though him and the Hapai guys are there to take it, and he wants it. These guys are all from Hapai. So now the men are digging a giant trench. He said it was 14 feet deep, 10 feet wide. They start digging around to build this fortress in Neyafu. Finau and the Madapulas and the main chiefs and generals are inside, and they're planning out the next move. I haven't been to Neyafu, but it says that there's one side where there's steep rocks. That's where the back end of this fortress is. So if anybody knows what Neyafu looks like or whatever, wherever there's steep rocks, that's where they built this fortress. That's one side. So they're going to build it where the steep rocks are. They're going to build wall around it so that one side is just those steep rocks. So Finau has a strategy in his mind. This right here will stand up against anybody who comes in the ocean because they can't come and climb over. They can battle from right there. The walls and that big giant ditch is built on the land. So now it's nighttime and a lot of the men just sleep on the shore. Some of the warriors from Feretoa, the Vava'u guys, come up to the fencing and they sneak over and they come to the fencing and they're looking inside the fencing of the fortress and they see people sitting around fires talking and whatnot. These guys start throwing spears and start hitting people and injuring people and killing people. They surprise the Hapai guys and some of them run over and jump onto the canoes to start retreating. But being that it was dark, a lot of the guys try to jump into the water, forgetting that it was low tide. And so they were jumping in and landing on rocks and landing on coral reef or whatever it was down there, breaking arms, breaking legs. Some of them bled out and died the next day. But after the Vava'u guys threw these spears in and hurt some people and all the panic that they caused and hurting people, jumping off of the cliff, trying to jump into the water, but actually jumping onto the rocks, the Vava'u guys, they disappear back into the bushes and they go back. The next day they finish the fencing and they start another ditch. They start digging another ditch. This ditch was 18 feet deep, 10 feet wide. Between the two ditches, they start lining up the carronades and cannons. Now the two ditches are built, the fencing is done, and a few days pass in peace. No bothersome from either fort. Meredith says after a few days, 5 of the women from Feretoa came to Neyafu to start talking peace. Because most of the men that killed Tuponiwa, they're dead now. They all understood that. They all knew who they were. And most of them, Tupotoa's men that killed Tuponiwa, their chief, now that they're dead, they're ready to talk peace. The Feretoa people. So the setup is bamboo walls up, 2 ditches. One of the walls is the ocean, where the steep rocks are. Finau gives orders to his men. Go and destroy the plantations around them. So basically he's going to destroy their food source. Go and destroy all their plantations and make a speedily return. Make sure you guys can retreat back fast. Those men go and they start collecting all the yams and the bananas and whatever they could collect from these plantations. As they destroy the plantations, they were bringing back all the food. And they said, yeah, we did run into some trouble and we lost a few guys, but we brought a lot of the food back. So they're battling as they do this. They're just battling back and forth, killing each other. They said we got to one of the plantations and there was all of their stuff was already almost full grown, these yams, but it was pretty guarded. They made sure that nobody can get in and steal those. So Finau says, all right, cool. Let's chill. Tonight we'll chill. Won't do anything. But tomorrow night, let's go over and try to rob that plantation of all its yams. One of the warriors goes to the Feretoa side and starts snitching on Finau. This is his intentions, this is what he's going to do, and earns their trust. So they have deserters, they have accomplices, they have back and forth, this method of war. Or I'm going to go on that side and tell these guys, some guys come over here and snitch on them, and we're going back and forth. For whatever reason, right? You can imagine their family, their friends, people just trying to come up with their own ideas of either to win battle or eliminate battle or the cause of it or the need for it. But there are a lot of things that people are doing on their own that weren't part of the main plans of the head chiefs. This guy was Liu Fao's son. So the Feretoa guys make a plan. All right, if they're coming tomorrow night to come take that plantation, we're going to hide guys all in the bushes and in the thickets and wait for them to come there so that they can kill them. So their plan was to hide, let Finau's men pass them. They're hiding in bushes, they're covering themselves on the ground. This is at night with coconut leaves or banana leaves, and let Finau's guys pass them. So that when they pass them and go to the plantation, these guys, the Feretoa guys, would jump up and cut off any retreat and take over the Hot Bai army and kill Finau and his men. They set up another group. While we're doing that, some of us are doing that, the other group get up and go around to Neafu, and you guys are going to attack the Neafu fortress while we attack and kill Finau and his men trying to come to the plantation. A lot of military strategy going on here. So Finau does that very early in the morning. He takes a group of the men and he leaves Liu Fao there in Neafu to watch over that kolo. Luckily for Finau and his men though, another deserter from Feretoa, comes over and meets Finau before he leaves and tells him the plan. Hey, they know what you guys are going to do. They know that you guys are going to take over that plantation of yams, and they're going to send another group around to come take the fortress that you left Liu Fao to watch. Finau realized that Liu Fao double-crossed him. Liu Fao was the one who sent his son over to Feretoa and told them the plans of what our plans are going to do. Finau realizes, oh shoot, my guy, Liu Fao, the chief, one of the chiefs here, he's double-crossing me. Finau finds that out and realizes that, and he calls his guards, go get Liu Fao and lock him up. So instead of going to the plantation, Finau goes and meets up with the group that was sent to come around to take Neafu. Finau strategically moved towards that group, and that group is surprised to see Finau and his men, realizing, oh, they know our plans. They start fighting and battling there. And eventually, the Feretoa guys make it through Finau and his men. Mariner said that 60 of them died, or that the Hot Bai guys killed 60 of the Feretoa guys, and they lost 14 or 15 Hot Bai guys. But the Feretoa guys were able to make it through the Hot Bai guys to go join the guys who were protecting the yams, the plantation of yams. Finau realizes that, well, we can't attack them now. These guys have joined the guys who are protecting the plantation of yams. Let's gather back. Let's go back to Neafu. They take their dead bodies and they go back to Neafu. The guys from Feretoa that were supposed to go to Neafu and take out Finau's men along with Liu Fao, who betrayed Finau, realized that Liu Fao's not here. The plan's not going as planned. And so those guys, they retreat and go back to Feretoa. They get back and they start dedicating these bodies of these dead men to the different gods. One of the gods were Tariai Pulotu, which means wait in the land of the dead. One god's name was Tuifua Pulotu, which means king of all the land of the dead. Now we're talking spirit world, basically. Another god was Laufiri Tonga. Another god was Tupoulalo Tonga. Another god's name was Senitakala. The first two gods are imaginary gods, right? They're the gods that they don't know or can't see or that they have faith in. The other gods are dead chiefs, the souls of the dead chiefs that they consider when they die, they go and become gods. One of them was even a goddess. It was the soul of the female named after that god, or the god that they named is the soul of that woman. After they laid these bodies in front of these houses of these gods, basically giving them to the souls, to those gods that these souls belong to, the relations, anybody who was related to any of these people, they took them. After a few hours, they took them and they went and buried them. Now, these were the bodies of the enemies. These bodies that they did this to are bodies of enemies, which means they set them as human sacrifices in front of these houses to the gods that they were giving the sacrifices to. And after that, the rest of them, they just threw over the water side of the fort, and some they even burned their bodies. These are the bodies of the enemies. Some were even curious as to what were inside bodies. Mariner said that some of them were just cutting bodies open to see what was in it. So they would do this to the bodies of their enemies to find out what is in bodies. And Mariner will go into detail with that later on. Mariner said some of the bodies were cut up and cooked to be eaten, which Mariner said about 40 men of these warriors actually partook in eating the flesh of their enemies. Now we've learned that they've gotten some of these habits from when they were in Fiji, or they were in Nuku'alofa when the Fijians showed them and instructed them, yeah, when we kill our enemies, we eat them. They thought it was the Fiji maxim, right? The whole tough guy, macho thing. We kill the enemies, we eat them. Which is the second time Mariner has seen Tongans eat flesh. I know there's a lot of talk about, yeah, we used to be cannibals. They used to be cannibals. They weren't cannibals per se, but there were warriors who thought that it was a warrior type behavior to devour flesh, to actually kill and devour flesh. That's why they looked up to, or at least they were really close friends with the Fijians, because of how macho they thought that was. That was gangsta, that you guys kill and eat them. So it wasn't a habit of the Tongan people, but a lot of the warriors did it for the same purposes and reasons that they learned from the Fijians. There was a curiosity as far as they truly believed that if you were to perform sacrilegious things, right, a heresy, that you would somehow develop cirrhosis in the liver. So some of the bodies they cut up to see if this person was sacrilegious in his lifetime by seeing if his liver had inflammation, if it grew, and you would die of it the more you perform sacrilegious things. So some of them opened up bodies just to check to see if that was the case. Mariner made sure to distinguish that these people were not cannibals, but they did eat flesh for these purposes that I just stated. Some of the women saw this happening, right? Some of this, after they went back, they're in Neafu, they're good, whatever. But they were still disgusted with the guys who ate flesh. They would be like, they would make fun of these men. Like, get away from me, you eat flesh, human flesh, which shows you the culture that we don't do that. We don't eat flesh, but that's gross that you do. Making that distinguishment between the flesh-eating habits and what we truly believe and do. One of them is not to eat flesh, according to the women that were making fun of these guys that did, or at least disgusted of. After they got rid of all the bodies, Finau decided, all right, let's get Liu Fao out here so we can make inquiries about his alleged betrayal. They brought Liu Fao out. Finau started asking the men if they knew anything about Liu Fao or his betrayal against Finau. And he couldn't find anybody. They were speaking good of him. He was loved by his men, and he was loyal to Finau, and Liu Fao was pleading to Finau, I've been loyal to you. My son may have betrayed you, but that was for his own purpose. He had to deal with the enemy, and that was just him. But I've always been with you. I've always been part of your cause, fought for your causes, and you see that the men are loyal to me as I'm loyal to you, so on and so forth. And so Finau softened his heart about Liu Fao, let Liu Fao free and put him back in his post as a general in Finau Ulukalala's army. The next day, Finau calls for a kava ceremony to give thanks and praise to their god. That god's name was Tupototai, and they wanted to do that to give gratitude to Tupototai for the victory that they had here in battle on Vava'u. So they set up the kava ceremony just like they set up the kava ceremony before the wars. When they invoked the gods, they set up the same thing, big circle with Finau sitting at the end of the circle. And we'll go into it in the next volume as far as the positioning of the people who sat in the circle. Basically, the person sitting at the kumete itself, that person does the kava and mixes it and doas it and so forth. Everybody else starts lining up basically from lowest to highest all the way around on each side of the circle, where Finau sits right at the head of the circle. We've already kind of went into as far as it's a ceremony of service. There's a lot of symbolism to how people sit, where people sit. So I'll go into more detail in the next volume. But Finau sits at the head of the circle, right across from the person sitting where the kumete is. And it's usually the highest one, because that one won't serve anybody kava, that person being the highest person in order. And then it steps down from there. Anyway, they're sitting and they're going to have a mix to give thanks and praise to Tupototai, their god, one of their tutelar gods. After they had the kava and pork, and they did pretty much the same thing as a low. You know, when you fight kava and you have a low. After you fight kava, you eat. They had pork, sat around, and one of the mataapures gave a speech. Basically one of those fetapa speeches for God, to give God thanks and praise for their victory. The priest answered the mataapure back, told them the Lord said, or the God said, that you're going to be successful here in Vava'u. You're going to win your wars or win your battles. The only problem is that the seeds of insurrection are already sown. There's already betrayals going on in here. That's the problem right now that you face. A strong fortress will need a united army where nobody is going to betray you if you're going to stand against Feretoa. After the priest said this, that there is a traitor among you, gave his speech, then he sat back, indicated that the god left his body. The priest did. leaned back. He said, Liu Fao is innocent, but there is one among you that much can be said about his character and may be an inside guy. And then he said, all right, revelation is gone. Go ahead and decide whatever. That person, or at least they knew, it seemed like they felt or they sensed that that person knew who he was, because after the priest said, the Lord is, or the Spirit of God has left him, and they sat back, that person got up and left the circle. So it's he acted very suspicious, almost as if he felt guilty that, ooh, he knew. And you know the strength of their faith and or superstition about things like this. And he knew, or at least everybody sensed, they know it's me. You know what? All right, I'm going to leave the circle. Now, if that was me, even if I knew or if I felt that way, I'm not going anywhere, because I don't want to give away my position. But that guy felt guilty enough to leave the circle. After that, the kava party broke up. Everybody started leaving. Finau acted cool. He stayed cool, stayed calm, stayed collected. Didn't want anybody, was hoping that nobody noticed what the priest was saying, because he said a lot of things and it was through the language and so forth. And, you know, it may have been, you know, subliminal. People may have or may not have heard it, but it's because it was as far as what he was saying. Finau was hoping that nobody heard, but he did hear and he did notice. So perhaps the guy got up thinking that he was just innocently getting up and leaving. The next day, an adopted son of Finau. Now, the movement, and we'll talk about this later, but he was an adopted son of Finau. And there does say there is language of his sons and so forth, his children, his adopted son. Mariner himself was an adopted son, but Mariner said this is another adopted son of Finau, right? Because we talk about history and how this person was related to this person. Now, the thing with getting lost in a polygamous society is the fact that he is an adopted son of Finau. So he is somebody else's son, and he may be adopted from somebody else, or Finau may be married now to his mother, and he has a different father. A lot of the ties, if you go through history or people telling history, they'll say, oh, they had the same mother, different fathers, they had the same father, different mothers, so on and so forth, because in a society of polygamy and plural marriage, this is what's going to end up happening. And I'll go into it more later into detail, but a lot of the children, if women were to leave men, they would take the children that are too young to be instructed. And eventually, once they get to a certain age, they'll typically go back to their father, and then the father will raise them, or they'll stay with the mother, like this adopted son, whether he's adopted from somebody else, or an adopted son from Finau being now married to his mother. A lot of that went on in all of Tonga. It may be lost as far as true blood and bloodline through this type of society, but we tie back as far as we can to whoever we can with what we know, which makes it even more we may be related, but we may not know it type of thing these days. That's why if we say that's my cousin, that's my nephew, that's my uncle, it's probably true because of this type of living. An adopted son of Finau comes to Finau and says, I have some secret intelligence. There have been sent to Feretoa, few of them, sent to Feretoa by Mapa Ha'ano. We've gone through first names. Usually your surname is going to be in the front of your name, and then your real name is in the back. Since they called him Mapa Ha'ano, his name may be Mapa from Ha'ano, because before they went to war with Vava'u, they stopped in Ha'ano, was the very last place they stopped before they came to Vava'u. So this may be a Mapa from Ha'ano, or just a family surname, Mapa Ha'ano. Either way, Mapa Ha'ano is a part of this group, and he's been sending guys to Feretoa to try to create a revolt against Finau. Now, whatever you think about Finau and the battle that just happened, I can kind of see that there would be. At this point in time, we know that Finau just wants to take over and conquer Vava'u. His aunt is the main chief here in Feretoa. She's the head chief in Vava'u. His brother was Tupo Niwa, right? Everybody knew that he had something to do with this assassination. So I can understand that there could be some sense of insurrection in the group, because you made us come and kill our cousins just because you want to rule here in Vava'u, even if it's against your aunt and your brother who used to run it here. So I can, at the very least, understand that Mapahano was probably a good guy, because at this point, with as warmongering as Finau is, you can't blame them. But at the same time, if you bout it, right? If you're going to rock with Finau and fight for his purposes and his causes and whatever he wants to fight for, then you got to be part of it 100%. You in or you not. So now they're planning a revolt. Mapahano being the head of it. This is what Liu Fao was just accused of. Oh, okay. Mapaha'ano probably sent Liu Fao's son, was probably on Mapaha'ano's side. Mapaha'ano shows up wrapped in mats, right? So not only did he have a tapa on, but now Mariner said he has mats on. Not only does he have mats on, he has the necklace of the Ifi leaves, which is a sign of peace. Or supposedly, you're supposed to be at peace when you meet with somebody who's dressed this way. Basically indicating that Mapaha'ano's scared. Whatever you got to say, hey, I'm dressed, I got the fits, I got the threads of peace, you're not supposed to touch me. That's basically what he's thinking. Not only that, but he brought a priest with him to come meet with Finau. He walks up to where Finau's sitting at his house with his matapudes. Mapaha'ano comes up dressed this way, sits down pretty much across from his house. The priest sits down with the priest. The priest then gets up, walks over, and sits down in front of Ulukalala and pleads his case for him. So he's public defender. He's telling him, Mapaha'ano is here. He's here to self-incriminate. He's brought the leaves of peace and he's dressed in the mat of the people of Tonga. And he's here to receive whatever justice you decide to lay upon him because he knows he's guilty. Why would you admit you were guilty? There had to be a purpose because typically you're like, I didn't do that. But when you're amongst a whole bunch of military-minded, clever, strategic mentality, and you know you got caught, and you know you may die ugly, it's probably the best thing to come out and say, all right, y'all got me. Or else you're gonna die ugly. You're probably gonna get murdered in your sleep. It's better that I come to you with the leaves of peace wrapped in my tapa and my fala or ta'avala so that I can come and let you know you checkmated me and I'm here to suffer my consequences for my actions. Finau goes on to kind of take jabs at him because Finau said, I'm not going to take away his life. He's not worth it. You only want to take the life of somebody you fear. Taking this man's life is like swatting a butterfly. It's pointless. So Finau's insulting him, but he says, I'm not going to kill him. I'm going to do something less, but he will receive a punishment for what he's done. Finau then strips him of all his power and his rank. You are no longer whatever he is. Mapaha'ano, if you were a matapure or if you were a eiki, whatever you are, you're stripped of it. Because remember, Finau is considered king. When he was in Nuku'alofa, Takai came over and considered him king. Even though Takai ended up betraying him. But for the most part, the men in Tonga, from at least from Hapai and Vava'u and Nuku'alofa, Bea, where Takai is from, some of those areas already considered him king because of his weapons of war, and they wouldn't want to not consider him king so that he doesn't go and attack them. That's why you would consider somebody a king if they weren't coming from a bloodline on the king. Now Mapaha'ano is stripped of all his ranking and his authority. Not only is he no longer a commander, but he's unprotected, not to be protected. He's no longer considered a chief. He is never to be considered a chief from here on out, and he's never to sit at the head of the circle anymore, or at least not at Finau's kawa circles. From here on out, not even his own men, not even the people in Ha'ano, nobody in Ha'apai, right? These are all Ha'apai guys. Finau's a Ha'apai guy. He grew up with Mapaha'ano, but no longer. And nobody will treat him like a chief. He's not allowed to be. Some of the other chiefs said, hey, you may have stripped him of his power, but he may convince some of his own guys to go against us. He may convince a lot of these guys to go to the other side. We got ourselves a problem. Finau tells them, this isn't just a problem between men. This isn't about battle. This is about God. This is about the Pototai. This is about the betrayal of one man against a man of God, against the priests, against the people. He didn't just betray me. Anybody who's part of him or whatever he's going through is cursed. Ulukalala cursed him. Anybody who joins that is going to have to deal with the Pototai. That's what I'm going to leave him with. And anybody who joins him. And we'll let the priest bear witness to that. After he said that, the company dispersed. From then on, Mapaha'ano continued to wear mats. It's almost like if you carried around a white flag. Everybody, all the warriors, they have tapa, but Mapaha'ano continued to wear mats. Like, hey, remember, hey, I got a ta'avala on. I got a mat on. So that everybody knows that, yeah, I'm downgraded. You know what I mean? I got demoted and moted. Mariner said from then on out, he wouldn't go to meetings. He wouldn't go to public occasions, sometimes he was just a regular old peasant. He was treated that way, and it was as the king decreed. Mariner wanted to make a point that he wore mats all the time, and it wasn't out of respect, because Mariner also said that typically you wear that out of respect at funerals and so forth, just like we do ta'ovalas now. He wore a mat around. He wore it out of fear. He wanted to make sure that everybody knew that for some reason back in Tonga, if you wore a ta'ovala or if you wore a mat around you, you were protected. As long as he wore it, Finau would not be mad. He said if he ever didn't wear it, Mariner said that Finau would probably kill him. Now, Mariner's an adopted son, so he would know. He's wearing it to make sure that everybody sees that he's wearing a ta'ovala. And typically you do that out of respect. It's ceremonial. To be respectful. You're wrapped in the Tonga attire, where he is doing just to protect his life. Sad way to live, but almost like the Scarlet Letter. You shamed yourself by betraying your king. Now, at this point, it's like, man, it might have been more noble just to actually go through death at this point than to live the rest of your life like this, where you have to be seen in a fala. You might as well have went to Feretoa and joined them than to live like this. But he's from Ha'ano, he's from Ha'apai. Everybody, all the warriors and all the other chiefs know. So in that case, stay suited in the ta'ovala. Mariner now says that there is at least one person deserting every single day. One person coming from Feretoa, one person leaving from Neyafu, and they're going back and forth just deserting. They're going back and forth. They're leaving each other's camps and joining the other camp. Finau finally got tired of it and said, all right, you know what? From here on out, the next deserter that comes here from Feretoa, we're going to kill him. I do not want any deserters anymore. Same thing for people that leave here. Any deserter that leaves here, if he leaves and we catch him, we're going to kill him. And I can imagine that's the right thing to do. You're confusing the entire army. Who's who and who's what, because if you guys are all betraying your armies, you guys are probably going to betray either one at any time. You're not worth anything now. You're not special anymore, because now it's every day. The next person that deserts from Feretoa, kill him. The next person that deserts from here to go and we catch him, kill him. They have no part in this army. They have no part in this war. If they can't stand up for who it is or what it is that they're standing up for, then they don't deserve to be alive in this time. Where right now, the best way to die right now as a warrior is in battle. The worst time to die is by betraying somebody, by betraying your troops, your comrades. So I think that Ulukalala was justified to do this. Not only that, but at this point, now there's so many going back and forth that the communication lines are open. Like they're taking information, bringing in like every single day. Now it's like, all right, you guys think this is a game? Right? Now there's too much communication going on. Cut it all off. Mariner said that there was a guy named Moteita from Feretoa who often would sneak out during the night from Feretoa and come catch either early in the morning or at night to catch guys who are outside of the fortress and kill them. This guy named Moteita, and he caught a few outside of the fortress. Killed. So he was a brave guy coming in at the cover of dark to find guys and just kill them. Mariner said early one morning, him and 12 to 14 of Finau's guys, they went out into the woods and they ran into 4 Feretoa guys. Mariner said they were digging for ma. Mariner gives a description of what ma is. He said it's breadfruit or it's bananas or it's pata or whatever it is. It's mashed up and then buried underground, and it's left there for a few days to ferment, for fermentation. Mariner runs into these guys with these 12 to 14 guys. Now, they believe that one of these guys is Moteita, the night assassin guy, and they're about to make an example out of him. A young chief stepped up and said, no, let's not take them back to make an example of them. Let's cut all their heads off right here, right now, and take their heads back. So that's what they do. There's one problem. Nobody has a knife. Nobody has a halepelu. Nobody has a sword. Nobody has something to cut with. And then one of the guys goes, oh, look, they ate shells, giant oysters or whatever it is. There's seashells right here. Grab those shells. Let's do it with that. They started doing that to these 4, and those 4 started begging in vain. But the Hawaii guys had no mercy. You guys were going to die today. Mariner says, don't do that. That's heartless. It's inhumane. Just kill them and then take their heads after. Which, yeah, that's more merciful. You're going to take a seashell to them and cut them with a seashell? But those guys say, no, they deserve this. These guys took and killed our guys in the early mornings or the late hours of the night when it was dark. These guys deserve what we're going to do to them right now. And one of them said, yeah, it's too much trouble to kill them first anyway. They're going to die if we do this. It's whakahela to bash their brains in. They thought that was whakahela. Let's bash their brains in. Nah, that's whakahela. Cut their heads off with a shell. Golly. Savage. Oh my gosh. The 12 to 14 guys that Mariner were with, they started holding these guys down and they started cutting them from the back of the neck, cutting through the skin, cutting through the meat, cutting through, finally getting through the arteries, getting the throat, just cutting, slicing away until there was nothing but the spine left. And then Mariner said that after they got to the spine, they twisted the head and gave it a good jerk until the heads came off. Excuse me? What kind of savage guys are these Hapai guys? Well, I guess both of them, because this Moteita guy would come over at night. Who knows how he killed those Neafu guys from Hapai. But this is the savagery of a wartime Tonga in those days. Then Mariner said after that, because they had to take off their tapas and the ngatus or whatever they were wearing so that they don't get blood on them. After that, they all washed themselves off and they put their tapas back on, the ngatus back on, and took the 4 heads with them. I can imagine, because, you know, we've killed pigs, we've killed horses, but those are animals. So to think about them doing that to each other, human beings, and justifying themselves, the nonchalant savagery of their behavior, and they're accepting that, no, this is what this is. We're at war. Yeah, this is what we're going to do. It kind of gives you a more greater appreciation of Tupo Taufa'ahau and his efforts to unite Tonga so that they stop acting like this. It gives you a little bit more appreciation of that. When they got back to Neaf, they walked into the fortress and found that Finau Ulukalala and those guys were Faikavain. They were just sitting around in the Malae Faikavain. Remember, when I say Malae, I mean the big open green area that, like Malae Akapulu or Malae Futpolo or whatever. Like that kind of malae, not the faitoka. Sitting around faikava, mixing socially. 4 different men walked into the kava circle and put the heads down next to each other, all 4 heads in the middle of the circle, facing Finau. Finau looks up and does a fetapa. Malo ngaue, malo ikuna, malo tau. As if they went to the grocery stores and bought a whole bunch of groceries and, you know, the same fetapa that you give at funerals. Malo e mausota, malo e maukeke, malo e maukoloa. Like 4 heads. Malo e tau gautama, malo e ngau. The savagery is interesting among these people. Mariner goes and sits next to Finau and tells him what happened. And then Finau asks him, well, why didn't you kill them first? I know, that's what I'm saying. Mariner said that Finau asked for both humane reasons. Why would you do that to them while they're still alive? So Finau still at least had humane sense in him as a wise man, where these young guys were just straight savage, they didn't care. So I guess with experience, they would learn that there is a point in time humane behavior is necessary. You don't have to be savage all the time. Just because we're in the middle of a war, we shouldn't, not out of the heart, should you treat a person like that. I know we're at war and a lot of things are justified, but if you're gonna do that, at the very least, be merciful to him and kill him first. That's the sense that Mariner got from Finau too. Finau was like, that's whakahela, why would you do that? Both out of trouble and out of mercy and being humane to those men, knowing that this war and this battle, it's not to cause hate among the people and each other or the warriors. This battle is for Finau's purpose. But Finau has to also understand this is your purpose, and in battle, things like this are going to happen. You're going to have to justify it within yourself and know that these things are going to happen. A few days later, a guy named Tupo Puku from Feretoa told the Feretoa chiefs. Now, Tupo Puku was a priest. He told the Feretoa chiefs, look, Finau's my cousin. Let me go talk some sense to him, and I'll figure out what we can do. We can work something out. The Feretoa chiefs tell Tupo Puku, no, you're trying to go and make teams with him. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to go join him. Some of the chiefs thought that Tupopuku had treacherous motives. And then Tupopuku tells them, well, if you think that, then you probably better kill me now. Either that or let me go live with him, if that's what you guys think. The chiefs in Feretoa tell Tupopuku, okay, give us some time to think about it. So they disperse, and Tupopuku, worrying that they might catch on, he goes and tells Finau, hey, we have a plan to besiege you. We have a plan to get you. And Finau decides, okay, let's start arming ourselves and start fortifying the fortress. So even Tupopuku was betraying the Feretoa guys because he is Finau's relative. After a while, they're waiting around. They wait around for a while, then they wait around for a while longer. And Finau, the more time, the longer that he's there, the longer that he's in Vava'u, he finally makes a decision that he really wants to make Vava'u his home, his residence. And he did this for 2 reasons. One, because it was the largest, Vava'u was the largest and the most fruitful. And second, to rule the Vava'u people. And it'd be easy to rule them because they don't have the same interest. They can do whatever they want. You know, you guys can be whatever, do whatever, but my interests are different. So I'll let you be. basically is what he's saying. They start running out of food this time of year. The season of sowing pretty much gone down, so he had to send some guys back to Hapai to get some more resources. A giant canoe was sent off back to Hapai. Go bring back yams and ma. I'm very interested in what this ma was like. You mash breadfruit, or you mash bananas, or you mash plantains, you wrap it up, and then you bury it for a long period of time so that it'll ferment, for fermentation. Interesting. Why would you want it to ferment? Is there a taste there, perhaps? Extra guys were sent with them so that they can bring another canoe of the same size with the same stuff. Just bring some more so that we can last us to the next season. Finau doesn't, at this point it seems like, okay, Finau is just going to live there in Neiafu. He just wants to live in Vava'u now. More of the women and children came from Ha'apai to go see their family. Some of the warriors that were in Vava'u, in Neiafu. On their way back, they stop at a place named Taunga. They stay there overnight. The next morning they sail from Taunga. They're going still on their way to Neiafu, but the winds were rough and it held them back for a few days. For the most part, they stayed on the canoe in Taunga and waited there a few more days because the winds were bad, keeping a lookout. Eventually they thought, okay, nobody's coming here anyway. Nobody's going to come bother us. So they end up going on to shore. And now they're lighting fires to stay warm, and they're getting comfortable there. It was said that it was around the 5th night that they were there in Taunga. Most of everybody was asleep. 40 or 50 men fell upon them, led by a guy named Makapapa from the Feretoa side. Apparently they saw this fire and knew that somebody was out here on this island, and they came out here from Feretoa, and now they have fallen upon the canoes of the resources that were supposed to go to Finau. There were some guys from the Neiafu fort, the fortress. Again, leaving the Neiafu fortress, going to Feretoa, telling the Feretoa guys, yeah, there's some folks over there that are supposed to bring some food and whatnot over here to Finau and them, but they're supposed to stay in Taunga for a few days because the wind is bad. There are still guys leaving, coming and going from Neiafu to Feretoa. It's almost like, okay, now everybody's getting comfortable. That's why they sent those 40 or 50 men over there to Taunga to cut off their supplies. Those 40 or 50 guys falling upon most everybody that was asleep, killing between 10 and 20 of them, and then a lot of them got up and had their weapons and fought them off and whatnot and got to the canoes. We were able to get away, but not before losing a few people there in Taunga. The ones that were able to get to the canoes got out there and left. You gotta go. If you can escape, escape. Some guys were already dead. Some guys were wounded. The canoes were getting out to sea. The ones that were running away were hit with spears. Now you're swimming in the ocean with a spear in you. Those who were able to get away went to a neighboring island and stayed there for the night, fixed their wounds and whatnot, and then the next morning they were able to be on their way to Neiafu. While that was going on, somebody from Feretoa came over to Neiafu and told them, hey, Finau, Makapapa and those guys went to go attack your guys' people that's coming from Hapai with you guys' resources. Finau leave immediately. Hey, send some of those guys. Jump onto some canoes and you guys go check, see where they are, see how they're doing. So some of the giant canoes the guys were in, they cut off and they found Makapapa and those guys. So they pulled up on their canoes. So they have big canoes here, giant canoes. They have Makapapa and those guys' canoes. Neiafu guys of Hapai pulled up on them. They pulled up, and now the Makapapa and the Feretoa guys are trying to get back to where they need to go. The Hapai guys cutting them off from canoe to canoe. Now they're fighting canoe to canoe. And the Hapai guys end up taking 10 of them right there. I said there are 40 or 50 of them. 10 of them right there in the water. So they start chasing. Those guys start going into the island, and the Hapai guys start pulling up on them. Now they couldn't go all the way to shore. They had to go right into the side of Vava'u where there was steep, sharp rocks, and they rowed their boats. The Feretoa guys rowed right up to the steep walls of the coral reef, and the Hapai guys start pulling up behind them. Now these guys are jumping right out of the canoe, climbing up these walls. Some of them fell, and they fell right into the rocks or the reef, dying. Some of them fell, were surviving, and as they fell, the ones that were surviving, the Hapai guys came and they started killing those guys off. And it seemed like the favorite weapon they like to use was a club, ironwood to the head. Apparently it's easy to crack a head open with a piece of ironwood depending on how you carve it. Another favorite was spear to the chest, spear to the body. Either way, the Hapai guys are now getting their revenge on Makapapa and those guys from Feretoa who took some of the people that came from Hapai in Taunga. Vengeance in our hearts. You killed our people that was at Taunga. There's kids there. There's women there. You're gonna die today. We first meet up with the first bunch in the water. 10 of them right in the water, killing them. Then canoes break off and they're going. Now they're climbing They're either falling or we're climbing up after them. Maybe spears. Either way, they get mate out. Mariner said they stayed there for at least for a fortnight. 14 days, 14 nights. Nothing happened. Everything was peaceful here. Seemed like everything was peaceful over there in Feretoa. Neafu is now, it's almost like, oh, you know what? You guys stay there, we'll stay here. Like there isn't a battle, like the battles seems like it's done. No, Mariner said that there were skirmishes here and there on the daily, people going back and battling and fighting or whatever, but it seemed like the main foundations of who the people are, or the warriors and the chiefs and everybody, they're now sinking roots down in there. Like, that's it. Like, we're done. We're here. We're done. Finau just wanted to be here. He wants to rule, but he really wants to just live in Vava'u that bad. Also, after this 14 days, after these 2 weeks, the guys from Hapai still aren't there. They aren't back to Neafu with the food. So Finau comes up with a plan. Okay, remember that big plantation that they're protecting? Let's go over there. We're going to go over there. We're going to fight them for it. We're going to get food. That's how we're going to get food there. And if we don't get any food, at the very least, we'll have them come out and we can go to war. We can battle and get some more of them there. Get some yams and go to battle and see if we can make a day out of it. So Finau devises a plan. All right, I'm going to get the 80 of the choicest, 80 of the best guys. You're going to go to the closest, nearest thickets of bush or woods or forest near Feretoa. We're going to leave you guys there. While you guys are there, I'm going to take 600 of these guys and we're going to go try to get some food, get the yams at the plantation. So in the dark of night, very early in the morning, they make their way over there. The men start placing themselves where they need to go. There's a little valley there. Finau goes and posts up right there in that little valley in some bushes. And it's dark, so nobody can see him. Finau then dispatches 100 men. Go, dig up the yams. He then calls Tupo Niwa's adopted son, Hala Api Api, to take 50 men with him and go entice the guys from Feretoa to come out. See if you can get them to come out. Because right now we're ready. We're in a position of war. We're in a good position right now. Hala Api Api takes them over there, but none of them want to come out. They stay there. They already had a plan for the great warriors, or a lot of the men, to go around the other way, to launch out giant canoes that were on the other side. They were going to get those giant canoes and bring them back around to Feretoa to break them up and make smaller canoes with it. So those guys were out. Finau just picked the right time to be there. Hala Api Api got close enough to where the Feretoa guys saw Hala Api Api. And as soon as they saw him, they sent somebody over there to go tell the guys that are on the other side of the island. Because most of the men and most of the bravest warriors, they're gone. They went to go get those giant canoes to bring them around to make smaller canoes. Go tell them that Finau's guys are here. So somebody runs and tells them, and they start running back and they get over there. But by the time they get there, the yams are for the most part already gone. The plantation being there up near Feretoa, which is probably the right place to put it, because you want to put it right outside the fortress and take care of it. That way you can see it from the fortress. It being there, but there was a valley and Finau was hiding over there, and some of the men were in the thickets and the bushes, and Hala Api Api were the ones that were told to come to get them to open the gates and come out so that they can catch them. They get there too late. They look out. The yams are gone and now they're mad. So a whole body of them, the bravest warriors and the strongest guys, they rush out towards Hala Api Api. And Hala Api Api immediately tells his men, shh, let's go. Because now they're pulling them out of the fortress. And Hala Api Api and his men, they start running towards where the rest of the Hapai guys are. Out of rage, the Feretoa guys are chasing Hala Api Api and those men. They're running, not even thinking that this may be a strategy of some sort to lure them in. Now, these guys are already set up. The Feretoa guys are running towards them, and all they had to do, make them do, was pass the first line of bushes where men were hiding behind to get these men to at least go beyond that. That way, those men can turn around. These men are already set up behind here, and now it's a wrap because it's a trap. So as soon as the Vava'u guys pass the rows of bushes chasing Hala Api Api and the other Hapai guys, these guys started attacking from behind them, and Hala Api Api and those guys turned around and started attacking them. And now they're surrounded. Out of their rage, they didn't even think that this was a trap. Mariner said this lasted for about 15, 20 minutes. Eventually, the Vava'u guys knew, oh, yeah, they got us this one. So a lot of them started retreating back into the fortress in Feretoa. And the Hapai guys chased them all the way back to their fortress. After a while, they recovered themselves in there. Everybody chilled out for a little bit. They took a break and they went back. After halftime, they went back. This time, they went head up with spears and arrows. So the guys from the inside are now shooting arrows and throwing spears. Mariner said that lasted for about almost an hour. Then they backed back in and took shelter. So they were obviously good with arrows and spears because they were shooting from inside of the walls of Feretoa. So in the first round of battle, the Vava'u guys lost 40 men and Finau only lost 2. In the second battle, with the arrows and the spears at the walls of Feretoa, the backside of the wall, the Vava'u guys lost 1, and the Ha'apai guys lost none. A few of them died after of wounds from spears and from arrows because the Vava'u guys were pretty good with the spears and the arrows. Mariner really complimented them about that. They didn't want to go club to club. The Vava'u guys perhaps they weren't brave enough at this point because they knew that the Ha'apai guys were good with clubs. But the Vava'u guys still had an advantage because the fortress in Feretoa had a mound of dirt on it. So from the top, they were throwing down spears and shooting arrows, where eventually the guys that were hit with spears and arrows, some of them bled out and died later from their wounds. It was raining that day, so they couldn't use the muskets and they couldn't use the cannons. And in the first scuffle, Mariner got hit in the foot with an arrow. It hit the broadest part of Mariner's foot, and Mariner said that it was a pain because those arrows, it splintered inside of the foot. So even though they took the arrow out, it would take forever for you to have to pull splinters out throughout days and weeks and months and years and so on and so forth. It was a pain to take those type of arrows out of your foot. From then on, Finau told everybody, all right, nobody go out. They're mad. They're in their vengeance now. We got their yams. They're real heated and they're hot. Do not leave the outside of this fortress. Do not leave the outside, the bamboo reeds. Remember they had reeds, bamboo walls with a ditch, with another bamboo wall with a ditch, and behind them was the steep mountain into the water. Finau said, nobody go out because now they're hella mad. They might come up and catch somebody slipping outside. After a while, some guy named Havili told Finau, you know what? Let me go to the northwest side of the island. They have a big old place where they have fenced pigs. Let me take some men, we'll take a canoe and go around to the northwest so we can go grab some pigs. We have the yams, and it'd be good to eat some good Vava'u yams with some good Vava'u pork. Havili had one of those stories where he was known to have killed the most men. Havili was known for going out at night. He was a night hunter. Just like how the Vava'u guys in Feretoa, they had that night hunter that went out at night. Well, Havili was a night hunter for Ha'apai. They had Moteita, the night hunter. We have Havili and Ha'apai. Finau allowed Havili to go. Havili took 40 men and they made their way to the place. The Vava'u guys had already sent warriors over there too, where they left their hogs to go protect that. Obviously, they're going to do that because they came and took the yams. Of course, they're going to go and take the hogs too. So some of the Feretoa warriors over there taking care of the hogs. That's something Havili and those 40 guys don't know. Havili late at night with those 40 men, took a large canoe, started sailing around. There were guys on the beach, hanging out, chilling. They notice that there's a giant canoe coming from around on the ocean. So they immediately get together, get the warriors together, Feretoa, and they come around. Off the beach, they come around, and now they set up on both sides of the road that lead over to the fencing where the hogs are. Havili leads half the men off of the canoe down the road towards the fencing. As soon as Havili and his men passed where the Vava'u guys are on either side of this road, the Vava'u guys jumped up and attacked Havili and his men, killing 15 of them. The Feretoa guys only lost 1, and that one guy that they lost, Havili himself killed him. Now it's just Havili and 4 guys left, and they were able to escape and make it out back down the road onto the shore, back onto the ship, and they sailed back off in the night, out and around. The thing about, if you've ever been to Tonga or anywhere at night where there's no lights, the moon is bright, or at least it's bright enough to where once it's reflecting off of the water, it's lit. You can easily be seen if you're out in the ocean. If you sat out there and you've known what the moon looks like and it reflection off the ocean, it's light out. Dim, very dim light, but it's still lit out for you to be seen. But Havili and his men come, 4 of them left, come and jump back on there, so 15 plus the 4, so there's 20 altogether. Havili, that, and those 4, plus the 15 they just lost. So 20 of them. So half of them were still on the ship. Then they turn around and they head back to Neafu. Once those guys chased Havili and his men back down the road, back down onto the beach, onto the big canoe, and they started leaving and sailing out. And you can imagine that whole scene where they're running and, hey, right, getting ready. Now the other 20 that's at the giant canoe, they start pushing off, and now it's going, and now they're just running, and they jump on the canoe and they sail. And some of the guys came and told the stories and said that, yeah, those guys said, hey, you guys want some pork? You guys want some pork? Right here, come right here. There's porks that we just killed, fresh. Right? That's what it sounds like when you're listening to these stories. Like, yeah, he said to come and eat these hogs, the ones that we just killed. You want some pork? Come. We just killed some. Nonetheless, Javier and his men sat there quietly, looking out to the beach, sailing away, looking out back onto the beach to the men that just got done killing some of their comrades, all yelling out, "You guys want some pork? Come eat some. Come eat this pork we just killed." And you can imagine them standing on the beach with their clubs or with their spears. Moha, don't ever come here if you get hungry. And if you get hungry, we'll kill the pork for you. Meaning, we'll kill you guys and feed you guys to each other. You guys come have these. They're fresh. See. Anyway, that's chapter 6. Stay tuned for chapter 7. And from here on out, 2025, I'm going to do the rest of these. Support the channel. Share. If anything, just share. Just share it. Share this. This is, like I said before, it is a difficult and complicated read because of the old English that it's written in. Ofaka Modolu. Stay tuned for chapter 7. Oh, gate.